Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on something really fundamental for education. How Spanish-speaking children actually develop the ability to understand what they read.
Yeah, like the essential building blocks,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Think of it as getting a solid grasp on what makes comprehension click in Spanish.
And we've got a great guide for this. We're diving into a meta-analysis.
Oh, yes, the study of studies.
Right, it combines results from lots of individual studies, so we get this bigger picture, more robust view.
Okay, so what's this one called?
It's titled Relation Between the Essential Components of Reading and Reading Comprehension in Monolingual Spanish-Speaking Children, a meta-analysis.
Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, a little bit, but important stuff. It was in the Educational Psychology Review 2022.
That's the one. And it covers research from 2000 right up to 2021.
And it wasn't just a few studies, was it?
No, it's pretty comprehensive. They synthesized findings from 33 different studies.
Wow.
Yeah, which gave them 146 effect sizes to work with. So a really solid amount of data. Okay, so our mission today for this deep dive, it's basically to pull out the key connections, right?
Exactly. What did this big study find were the strongest links between different reading skills and actually understanding the text for these kids?
We want to give you, the listener, that clarity, those aha moments maybe, but without drowning in stats.
Right. Actionable knowledge.
Okay, let's get into it. The meta-analysis mentioned where most research had been focusing. What were those main areas?
Yeah, it seems like before this review, researchers were really concentrating on two main things.
Okay.
First, the link between phonological awareness, basically understanding the sound structure of language.
Like hearing the sounds in words, manipulating them.
Precisely that. How that relates to reading comprehension. That got a lot of attention.
Makes sense. And the second one?
The second big focus was the alphabetic principle.
Ah, the letter-sound connection.
Yep. Understanding that letters represent sounds in a systematic way. Researchers really dug into how grasping that principle affects comprehension.
Which seems pretty foundational. I mean, if you can't decode the words.
Exactly. Comprehension is going to suffer.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the meaning if you're stuck on just figuring out what the words are.
So when this meta-analysis pulled everything together, did these two areas still stand out as the most important? What had the strongest connections?
Well, yes and no. They were important, but one really showed a particularly strong link. The analysis found the largest effect sizes, the most significant connection for phonological awareness.
Still phonological awareness, even in Spanish, which people often say is more straightforward sound-wise than English.
Absolutely. It seems that deep understanding of the sounds within words is just critical for making sense of text, even with Spanish's more predictable spelling. It's a really strong predictor.
Okay, wow. So that's a key takeaway right there. What else showed a big connection?
The other really significant one was fluency, reading fluency.
Right, reading smoothly, accurately, not too fast, not too slow, kind of automatically.
Exactly that. When kids can read fluently, they free up their mental resources. They're not bogged down decoding word by word.
So they can actually think about the meaning.
Precisely. Fluency had a really significant impact on comprehension scores across the studies.
Okay, so phonological awareness and fluency are the heavy hitters, according to this big review.
Definitely the ones with the largest effect sizes reported.
But wait, you said earlier that phonological awareness and the alphabetic principle were the most studied. Were there other skills they looked at, even if they weren't studied quite as much before?
Oh, yes. The meta-analysis did cover other essential components, too. It wasn't only about those two.
Like what else contributes?
Well, they looked at morphological awareness.
Okay, morphology. That's about word parts, right? Prefixes, suffixes, roots.
Exactly. Understanding how words are built. Think about Spanish. It has a lot of prefixes and suffixes that change word meaning.
Like ito or ita, making something small.
Perfect example. Gato versus gatito. Knowing ito means small helps you figure out the word, even if you haven't seen gatito before. That's morphological awareness in action.
And how did that relate to comprehension?
It showed a positive relationship. Maybe not studied as much, but definitely important.
Yeah.
If kids can break down unfamiliar words using morphology, it boosts their understanding.
Makes sense. What about just knowing words? Vocabulary.
Ah, yes.
Yep.
Vocabulary. As you'd expect, a clear positive link there, too.
Seems intuitive, right? More words you know, the better you understand.
Absolutely. And the meta-analysis confirmed this with the data. It's common sense backed by research. This suggests things like pre-teaching vocabulary.
Or just encouraging wide reading.
Exactly. Both can directly help build that vocabulary base needed for comprehension.
Okay, one more. Oral comprehension, understanding spoken language.
Mm-hmm. That was also looked at and found to be significant.
How so?
Well, language is language, fundamentally. If a child struggles to understand Spanish when they hear it, they're likely going to struggle when they read it too.
So good listening skills support good reading skills.
Definitely. Strong oral language provides the foundation. Reading comprehension builds on top of that.
So it's this whole web of interconnected skills: phonological awareness, fluency, morphology, vocabulary, oral comprehension, all playing a part.
Precisely.
Now, you mentioned earlier the studies weren't all identical in their findings. The meta-analysis talked about heterogeneity, variation.
Yeah, that's a key point. The results weren't perfectly consistent across all 33 studies. There was variability.
Why? What causes that kind of variation in research?
The meta-analysis pointed to a few factors. One big one was the age of the children.
Ah, okay. So the skills might matter differently depending on if you're looking at, say, first graders versus fifth graders.
Exactly. The relative importance of maybe decoding skills versus vocabulary might shift as children get older and become more skilled readers.
That makes intuitive sense. What else?
Another factor, the country where the study was done.
Wait, really? The country? How would that...
Yeah, kind of surprising, right? But it suggests that things like different educational systems or maybe teaching approaches common in one country versus another.
Or even cultural things.
Could be. Curriculum differences, teacher training, maybe even the kinds of books kids typically read. It hints that the context matters.
Well, it's fascinating. So age, country, was there a third factor?
Yes. The specific tests used to measure reading comprehension.
Ah, the assessment tools themselves.
Right. How you measure comprehension can influence what relationships you find. Some tests might focus more on literal recall, others on inference, or understanding complex sentences.
Like the one they mentioned, the CLP.
Yeah, the Prueba de Comprensión Lectora de Complejidad Lingüística Progresiva. The CLP test by Alien, Konemarin, and Milichik was one example they cited. Different tests tap into slightly different facets of comprehension.
So the tools shape the results to some extent. Okay, so pulling this all together, what are the practical implications? What should educators or researchers take away from this?
Well, for educators, I think the message is pretty clear.
Focus on the big ones.
Yeah. Given the strong links for phonological awareness and fluency, those really need to be priorities in the classroom for Spanish-speaking kids, especially early on.
So, lots of sound work, lots of practice, reading smoothly.
Yeah. Curriculum, teaching methods, they should really target strengthening those areas. If you're an educator listening, the data strongly supports focusing energy there.
Okay. And for researchers?
The meta-analysis suggests, well, keep digging into why phonological awareness and fluency are so key. Understand those mechanisms better.
And also look into that variability.
Definitely. Explore why age, country, and assessment type make a difference. Understanding those factors better could really refine our picture of Spanish reading development. So, for researchers listening, there are clear avenues for valuable future work.
Right. Okay, let's try and summarize the key points for everyone listening. We've done this deep dive into a major meta-analysis on Spanish reading comprehension, and the big takeaways seem to be phonological awareness, understanding sounds, and reading fluency, reading smoothly, have really strong links to comprehension for Spanish-speaking kids.
Crucial links.
But other things matter too, like understanding word parts, morphology, knowing word meanings, vocabulary, and understanding spoken language, oral comprehension. They're all part of the mix.
Yep, it's a network of skills.
And we also learned that research results can vary. Factors like the kids' ages, where the study happened, and how comprehension was tested can all influence the findings.
Which is important context to keep in mind when looking at any single study.
Absolutely. You know, what strikes me is how important phonological awareness is here. Even in Spanish, we often hear about its importance for English with its tricky spelling.
Right, but it's clearly fundamental even when the writing system is more transparent. It suggests something potentially universal about that early stage of cracking the code, maybe.
That's a really powerful thought, which leads us nicely to our final point to ponder. For everyone listening, consider this. How might these findings about Spanish reading relate to learning to read in other languages, even ones with completely different scripts?
Are there common threads?
And, maybe more practically, for educators working with Spanish-speaking students, How can you best weave together activities that target phonological awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and morphology, recognizing they all support each other?
Yeah, how do you build that whole web effectively in the classroom? Those are definitely key questions for improving literacy instruction.
Great points to think about. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today into how Spanish-speaking children learn to read and understand.
We hope it's given you some valuable insights.